Ooh, nice car. Hello and welcome to another video. Happy days today. I've just literally passed my Mod 1. So this is for my full A license, and basically I can't, or I haven't recorded me doing it live. Instructors and the DVSA, whatever you call them, aren't very happy in you recording their faces or recording the test, so I couldn't record it. So what I'm going to do today is basically go over, well, give you the main tips really for how to pass first time. If you still haven't had your test yet, well, it's just heads up, hey, just do this or don't if you don't want to trust me. But I am someone with experience in passing their Mod 1s. I did the Mod 1 with the A2 license and I passed first time, but I just didn't pass the Mod 2, and then I gave quits and just said, hey, I'll stick with a CBT for a year and a half. And now I've passed first time on the A license, so I do have a bit of experience. So yeah, today I did it early in the morning. So I live in Peterborough, if you're not aware, or if you haven't seen any other videos. And I had to go to Corby, which is like 45 minutes. I had to be there at 7:30 in the morning. So I left home at 6:30 on this 125 to go to Corby at -1. Not the best idea, thank you, I know. But I did that, and basically I was freezing by the time I got to Corby. They had Kawasaki's. No, were they Kawasaki's? I think they were. I don't even know what I was on just then. But yeah, 600cc motorbikes. And I basically did it through Cam Rider. So I know Cam Rider's in Peterborough and they have one in Corby, Kettering. I did it there because I want to get my A license as quick as possible. So it was the place to go really. Because Peterborough is bigger, there's more demand, so I'd have had to do it later on. But hey, I've passed. Mod 2 is on the 13th of April, so in 2-3 weeks time. But hey, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about the Mod 1. So as I said, I did it in Kettering. It was me and another bloke and the instructor. Of course, that you can have an instructor if you do it via a school. The other guy failed, I passed, so I can probably give you some tips on how he failed, what he failed on, and also on how not to fail. Oh shit. Yeah, I didn't kick up hard enough there. I'll leave that in for the video to laugh at myself. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to park at an industrial estate to show you some bits, but let's just start with the initial first bit. I mean, it's probably the easiest. It's arriving to the test centre, so hopefully you haven't fallen off your bike by then. So what you're looking at really is driving, well, don't drive into the bay. Probably your instructor will say this, or if you don't go with an instructor, I mean, there is the chance that you could probably buy your bike for the test, but then you'd need someone to bring it that has a license, because you won't be able to ride it to the station. So when you come up to the driving centre, as I said, hopefully I haven't fallen off by then, you will not want to drive into the bay, but basically get off the bike and reverse it in so you can drive straight out. So the main reason I say that is that when your test starts, you can start off good and just basically just drive out of the bay, and not having to reverse. I mean, the easier it is, the easier you make it, the easier it will be. So the examiner will call you over. I mean, you'll hand over your CBT license, your provisional or full driving license, and your theoretical pass from your exam. Once you have all of that, you have to sign a declaration of that you've lived 6 months, last 6 months in the UK, and that your bike's got insured. And that's what he'll tell you to get back on your bike, or put your kit up and wait beside your bike until he instructs you further. So after that, he'll just open the bays, well, not the bays, the doors, the gates to the test parking designated area, whatever you want to call it. Now you just drive in, and you do then drive into where your test's going to be. It's just a matter of driving in once he's opened the gates, and driving into the designated area. Again, you're going to drive into it this time because this is where you're going to do your first manoeuvre. What I would say here is, even though you probably would say, hey, I haven't actually entered the gated area yet, my test hasn't started, make sure you do a lifesaver even though you parked in a bay, just basically to get the ground started and you're not going to make any mistakes then. Yeah. So once you've done your first manoeuvre, remember when you're handling your bike, always look around, even though you know there's no cars, no nothing, just look around. Pretend there's 1,000 people there, just keep on looking. Yeah, I can see there's people, because he does say pretend it is in a real life situation. So once you've done that, you will have put your bike into position to start the slaloms. I mean, I can't really give you tips on slaloms. I mean, don't kick your feet out, and basically, I mean, it's probably a thing you're going to do 10,000 times before doing this test. And when I did the slaloms today, the first one did hit me like, oh, it is actually quite close to the start. But again, use your back brake if you're going too fast, and yeah, just make sure you're always looking. So you've gone past one cone and you're immediately looking at the cone after that. Don't stay fixed on the cone you're going round. You need to just keep on eyeing the one that's after. Yeah, I don't have any cones in my bag to show you, but yeah, I mean, I'm gonna link a video from a guy that I did watch when I did my A2 license, mod 1 for the A2, where he did it live and he actually shows you how it's done and he narrates it, and I think it's really good. This video here is just for tips, things how you can even improve even more. So again, after the slalom, you're going to go directly into the figure of eights. Again, always looking over your shoulder. It's a bit like a U-turn really, just but continuing. Which I will actually go to the industrial state to do the U-turns, but not figure of eight, because I mean, you need a bit more space, don't you? But yeah, there'll be two blue cones, so you do figure of eight. You can ask if you want, but in theory you can go over or go round. And I lost the audio. Sorry about that. So I'm going to narrate from now on the rest of the video. To start with, as I was saying, use your back brake instead of your front brake. The main issue here really is the front brake's more powerful, so if you did use it, you'd probably come to a stop and you'd put your foot down, basically the instinct. So even if you're not going to use the back brake, just put your foot over it, so at least you are, basically it's hovering over it. I would also say here, if you were to use it, or if you were to use it too much and you were to come to a stop, you can always use the accelerator just to give a bit more power. You might jolt a bit, which is, you might lose control, but again, it's probably better than putting your foot down, because that's an instant fail. So I did 2.5 figure of eights, and then the instructor called me over to do the slow ride. Now, as I explain in this video here, and as you'll see, I start moving the handlebars when showing you what happens if you go too slow, which will happen because you'll be balancing yourself, and it's probably not the best thing to be showed to the instructor or to the examiner, that you're basically moving from side to side to keep balance. You can go a bit faster than 1 mile per hour, but don't go 10 miles per hour, because that is not walking speed, or at least it's not my walking speed, and I assure you it's not going to be the examiner's walking speed. But yeah, so once you've done that, you'll stop inside the 4 cones, which will then be used for the circuit of the avoidance and the controlled stop. But first, you'll stop there to do the U-turn, which will be explained to you by the examiner. Now, something I need to point out here is that when the instructor gives you any instructions, or gives you basically each phase, you need to, when you stop,
do your lifesavers from both sides before you start going, because that is a minor. But yeah, so going back to U-turn, I will basically explain more of this later on in the video, as I do go to the estate, or the industrial estate, to show you how they are done. So after that, basically, so once you've done the U-turn, you will again slow down and stop, kick it in neutral, and then you'll be instructed 3 times on the 3 different circuits you're going to do. So the first one's a controlled stop. You don't really need to know much there. The first thing, or the fact you'll realise, is that you actually have more space than probably where you were taught, because it's there's more space really, and it's wider than the car park, whatever you used to practice. So the controlled stop, I mean, speed is irrelevant, but if you get a taste for how fast you need to go, that is good. I think I did mine in 48 kilometers per hour, which is just under 30 miles per hour. So you do that, make sure your front wheel's inside the 4 cones, whack it back in neutral, wait for the command, and come back to the examiner for the next one, which is the emergency stop. Now here, it depends on what type of bike you had. If you have ABS, I mean, no worries, but the bike I was using today, it didn't have ABS, and the instructor from Cam Rider told me that basically let the bike stall. It might be a minor, but at least the most important bit is you come to a stop, and that's what you do. Because again, you'll full of these circuits, so for the controlled stop, the emergency stop, and the avoidance, you've got to be in gear 2. But anyway, in my case, I didn't have a bike with ABS, and I went too fast. I went at 67 kilometers per hour, so that was probably faster than what you should be doing it at 50. I got a minor for that, I have to admit, but I did slow down, and in this case, the back wheel I start to notice it basically locking up. So you just release the brake. But yeah, I mean, probably one of the other things here is do not hit any of the cones whilst you're doing these. But again, because you're going in a straight line, you shouldn't hit a cone. The most important bit is stop when the instructor lifts his hand, not when you pass the speed box. And finally, when you've done that, again, you don't need to end in the designated area, because you'll be stopping when he lifts his hand. You'll be then called back to the last one, which is the avoidance. Again, get into second gear, or before you do your emergency checks, of course, before departing. And then basically you go around, you look at, you go to the other cones, basically the ones on your left or on the right. In my case, I had to swerve to the left. And this is where my colleague that also did the test failed, because he whacked one of the cones, which, well, first of all, they let him do it again, because the first time he did it too slow, but the second time he hit the cone, so again, that's an instant fail. So you always want to aim for the outer cone, not the inner cone, when you're doing the swerve. So that's the cone you're looking at. My Cam Rider instructor said he's your worst enemy, so aim for him. But don't aim for him and don't hit him, because that'll be a fail. But get as close as possible. And then once you've done that, I mean, you'll have a feel for it. Just look back to see if you've actually knocked any cones over. If you haven't, it's probably a case that you've passed. But don't think like your exam's passed then. You still got to get out of the testing area and back into the bay that you departed from. So listen to the instructor. My instructor told me basically, I'm going to open these gates, and when the gates are open, stay still, and when I lift up my hand, you can go outside and drive into the bay. So I did as instructed. I did my life checks before departing, or before basically leaving the bay area, and then I basically left the testing area and pulled back into the bay I was parked in, and that's basically it. So the last bit really is going to be now me at the industrial estate, showing you how I do U-turns and what are the main considerations you need to take into account. Right then, so the first thing really for the U-turn is, when you do your lifesaver to turn, you just turn. Do not then look back straight forward and then do the turn. You have to, when you move your head, you have to do the turn. And when you turn, make sure your eyes are fixed on a certain point of reference, so that will be where you'll be driving to or turning to. So in this case, in the video, you can use the fence that you can see, or you can use the side of the curb, but always looking at one point. So you focused on that and making sure you don't go over that point, because that probably would mean you've gone over the line. So I'm going to show you a couple of videos now, both from the GoPro perspective of me letting over, but also from a camera I took. Some things to take into account really is, again, if you're going too fast you can use your back brake, and if you're going too slow you can rev it up a bit. Particularly I pull in the clutch here, so I have total control, so when I start releasing the clutch it gives me more power. At the same time it's basically a balance between clutch and accelerator and brake. I'm sure you'll be able to practice this before your test and you'll have some familiarity with this. But yeah, accelerate always, as I said again with the figure of eights, if you do a jolt, I mean at the end of the day you might still be able to get in within the lines, but if you put your foot down it's a failure. And then that's basically it. Something else really is, I mean, the way we practiced at Cam Rider was they've made the lines shorter than they actually are on the test. So if you actually do something that's harder than in real life, it will then on the test become easier. So you do the hard stuff at training and the easy stuff on the test. But yeah, I think that's all. I mean, again, so sorry for the audio. It just couldn't stop crackling from now on. I only realised when I was editing the video later. But again, I will try and sort this out for the next video. But nonetheless, thank you for watching, and I hope you pass if you have your test coming up soon. I hope you learned something from this video, and hope you put it in practice at least. And yeah, comment if you pass first time. That's what we're here for, isn't it? But yeah, take care, and hopefully I'll see you on the road someday.